Beautiful games have been around since video games began, and in the past 8 years we've seen the dream of photorealistic graphics start to take shape. There are some games, however, that when they came out, they were so impressive they felt like they were being plucked right out of the future. And more than 8 years later, these games to me are still without equal. This is one of those games. Batman Arkham Knight came out in the summer of 2015. It's an open-world game that does so many things that even recent games hardly attempt, and at a graphical and artistic fidelity that is in many ways yet unmatched. This game was built on a software called Unreal Engine 3. For comparison, this is what the best Unreal Engine 3 games looked like at the time. And then Arkham Knight comes out and redefines what a modern open-world game is capable of. There are so many impressive things to talk about with this game, but I'm going to do my best to focus on just 3. Batman, his car, and Gotham City. Batman's character model is absurdly detailed, particularly his armor and cape. The metal exterior bits play with the light and are layered on top of a softer, darker underlying material. This lets Batman animate without the hard bits of his armor stretching and warping. The leather-like material of his cape looks thick and durable, but not too shiny, even in the rain. It feels like this whole suit was made in real life and then scanned into the game piece by piece. I especially like the subtle carbon fiber material on his shoulder plates. The domed top of his cowl reflects the light and remains convincingly smooth. Making a round object look truly round is a difficult thing in video games because under the hood, everything is actually made out of hard edges. It's obvious that extraordinary care was taken to treat each material with unique properties. Oftentimes in games, it's the lighting that betrays the realness of a texture, especially when that texture is supposed to be wet. But in Arkham Knight, the lighting accentuates the realness. It reveals more details from the materials as you look closer. The raindrops running down the cape look wet and oppressive and feel like they saturate the suit and make it heavier. Outside of the rain, the suit gives off the layered, dull sheen of a waxed car. Batman's skin color is complex, and his stubble is finely detailed. His eyes look realistically deep, and the black makeup around his eyes is convincingly blended. There's even a thin film or contact lens on the eyes that gives Batman holographic information, and you can see it working in the video conversations. A game's main character model is supposed to be the best looking thing in the game, since it's front and center at all times. But this team has clearly gone beyond that requirement and achieved a look that I didn't know was technically possible yet in video games. And this isn't just true of the Batsuit. The Batmobile is featured heavily in this game. Not just as a way of getting around, it's an extension of Batman, visually and mechanically. The debut of the Batmobile makes a statement and purposefully shows off its details and power. A brushed, darkened metal exterior to match Batman's armor, bat-shaped hubcaps, and brake pads that glow red with heat when under a hard brake. A mechanically complex and hungry-looking jet engine in the back. I love how you can see the inside of the Batmobile through its windows, and how you can occasionally see into the back seats when Batman puts someone into his custody. Showing the interior space of the car like this enforces the idea that it's a three-dimensional, functional vehicle with thought-out logistics. The way it looks is one thing, but it also drives the way you expect it to. The controls are responsive but heavy, with the weighty back section of the vehicle lagging slightly behind the front when you make turns. I love all the little details in the controls. Like if you hold the handbrake while pressing the gas, the back wheels start smoking and fishtailing. It feels like a powerful dog on a leash begging to be let loose. And when you do let loose, the engine bucks and the exhaust burps fire as you get up to speed. I love how if you hold the boost button while the car is stopped, the jet in the back whirls and glows like a pilot light. I love how you can do donuts if you play with the brakes and steering just right, graffitiing the road with burnt rubber. The developers know it's a fun vehicle to drive. They give you makeshift ramps around the city, and even let you drive onto some rooftops. Look at this little detail. They made a small slot on the body of the car to give clearance for the back fins when the suspension pushes the wheels upwards. This is an amazing detail here. The brake pads not only heat up and glow red when doing a hard brake, they actually do this in correspondence with the kind of braking you're doing, as they would in a real vehicle. If you do a standard brake, all 4 brake pads glow. If you do a hand brake, only the back wheel brake pads glow. There are so many tricks and stunts to discover when controlling the Batmobile, some of them satisfyingly over the top. None of these little details are ever necessary to engage with in the gameplay. They're all optional. But they add to the depth and the believability of this machine, and to the feeling of Batman's mastery of it. Now, most open-world games with vehicles have 2 main modes. You're either driving or you're walking, and there's a really defined line between the 2 modes. But in Arkham Knight, the vehicle gameplay is intertwined with Batman's gameplay. You can call the Batmobile at any time with the press of a button. You can do this while walking, running, gliding, fighting, sneaking. As long as a road is in sight, the Batmobile can find its way to you, navigating the world on its own. You can actually see it doing this if you switch to Batman's X-ray vision. And even if the road is not in sight, you can still remote control the Batmobile, and remotely drive it to you. And if you drive it right into Batman, he will acrobatically jump into it and initiate manual control. It is almost always accessible to you. And just as you can enter the Batmobile from any gameplay state, the Batmobile can launch you back into any state just as quickly. You can eject from the vehicle into an enemy land. You can eject into a glide. You can eject into a building interior. The Batmobile can even help you in combat, tag-teaming bad guys with you, or help you solve puzzles in the open world. At any time, on foot or while driving, you can track a criminal's vehicle and initiate a car chase. And I won't even really get into how the Batmobile can smoothly transform into a battle tank with omnidirectional control. This all connects Batman to his vehicle to make it a seamless gameplay loop, and gives you every reason to play with the Batmobile and find creative ways to use it. The other major ingredient is the open world itself. It also invites you to play with it in a dynamic, three-dimensional way. The buildings and roads glisten in the rain. The wet pavement looks craggy and dirty, and it looks like there's real water pooling up in the geometry. The neon lights of the city illuminate the raindrops passing in front of them. Old buildings look used and weathered with layers of grime and damage. There are buildings and signs with such inspired designs that have no gameplay purpose. I really believe that some architect or graphic designer in Gotham City was employed here in the past and was paid to design these places for the people that lived here. The macro architecture of the city is dense and claustrophobic and has multiple levels of elevation, various styles of buildings from different design eras. Just by gliding around the city, you can get a glimpse of its past, present, and the near future. This detail really blows me away. The LED billboards in the city are not just big glowing pictures. If you zoom in on them, you can see they actually have a pixel structure, and they work the way a real LED TV works, with a red, green, and blue sub-pixel structure, with the colors of the image being made by changing the brightness of those sub-pixels. For comparison, this is how another open-world superhero game, Spider-Man, achieves this effect. Spider-Man came out over 3 years after Arkham Knight. The world is also surprisingly dynamic with a lot of small-scale destructibility. This feature's only use seems to be to make the Batmobile feel more powerful. It chips through the building corners and various other obstacles, sending the debris flying. Interestingly, the developers could have made the Batmobile smash through this stuff with ease. Instead, you can feel the Batmobile's speed decreasing just a bit as you drive through these objects. Because of this, it feels like you're able to drive through these things not because they are fragile, but because the car is strong. Also, when you destroy lampposts, the light that they are providing goes out. You can darken a whole alley this way, just for fun. What's even more impressive to me are the buildings' interiors. Most open-world cities don't let you go into any buildings. It may sound strange to someone who doesn't play video games, but it's true. Typically, a video game city can have an impressive surface world, and might even let you get on the rooftops, but all interior spaces are often completely inaccessible to the player. There are numerous reasons for this. Players expect a higher level of detail and realism from interior spaces, which can be difficult to achieve when the developer is already using all their rendering budget to make the open world look as good as they can. This means that in order to create a good interior, you either have to add a loading screen between the exterior space and interior space, or lower the fidelity of both spaces. Neither of these are satisfying solutions. The player-controlled camera can also have issues in an interior space. It has to come in much closer to the player and avoid a lot more geometry in an enclosed space, so a new camera system might have to be made. And putting gameplay mechanics into these spaces can exacerbate all these issues. As a result, most open-world superhero games either make their interior spaces completely separate levels from the open world, or they don't include any at all. This really means most video game cities feel hollow and restrictive. While Batman Arkham Knight doesn't let you go into just any building, it does let you seamlessly go into more than you would expect. And they are beautifully detailed. Some are opulent and gothic. Some are run down and dirty. Some are old and dusty. Some are high-tech and new age. Some are just creepy. Not only that, but in some cases, you can enter these buildings by crashing through the windows while you're gliding. It's such an iconic and seamless transition and goes a long way in making the world feel accessible and explorable, the way it should in a power fantasy superhero game. And just as quickly as you crashed in, you can jump out and resume your surface world gameplay. The Batmobile is not excluded in this seamlessness either. There are places where the Batmobile can use its electrified winch to give you access to buildings. Or the whole vehicle itself can be lowered into certain spaces, all without loading screens. I hope I'm communicating just how impressive this is on a technical level. Most games of today don't let you do stuff like this, let alone games from 7 years ago. So many systems synergize in this game to create an experience that felt like technical wizardry in 2015, and still does today. We haven't even talked about the game's story. It's very good, with great performances, impressive set pieces, and genuine surprises. The side missions are diverse and feel just as crafted as the main story. There are so many gadgets and gameplay mechanics that are as deep and detailed as everything I've mentioned previously. There's just so much to love in this game, and it's all placed into this rock-solid mechanical framework of you, your vehicle, and the world. Thanks for watching.